So a warm welcome to our fourth webinar of our series, Supply Chain Planning in Automotive. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mark Schleier, VP at 4Flow, Head of the Digital Practice, and I'm responsible for major supply chain transformations. Today, we will talk about the topic, how to protect your automotive supply chain from the impact of shortages. So let me give a short overview what expects you today. First, we will give you a short introduction into the topic. Second, we introduce rapid response, a planning solution which is of great help in exactly this kind of shortage situations. And third, we prepared for you a look and feel experience where we will show you a use case in a demo presentation. Yeah. At the end of this webinar, you will have the chance to interact with us, to ask us questions. For this, please use the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. There's a question box. There you can type in your questions, and at the end, we can answer it to you. So, but now let's introduce the speakers of today to you. And please, Peter, go first.
Okay, thank you, Mark. My name is Peter Schreckenberg. I'm the Senior Account Executive here at Kinaxis and responsible for the automotive industry. And I'm happy to be your host today. Hans-Georg.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hans-Georg Kaltenbrunner. I'm Industry Principal with Kinaxis, in charge of the automotive and industrial sector in Europe, and looking forward to a fruitful thought exchange with you this afternoon. Tobias, over to you.
Yep, and last but not least, my name is Tobias Schulz. I'm a business consultant at Kinaxis, typically responsible for the functional solution design, and I will show you the demo later today.
Thanks. This session is a common session of Kinaxis and 4Flow. Together, we offer transformation of supply chains to be more agile and to be more efficient. And both companies have a long, successful history in automotive. We both have an end-to-end view on the supply chain. 4Flow is a consultancy with deep supply chain knowledge and know-how. And Kinaxis is offering, according Gartner, the #1 planning solution when it's about supply chain planning. So, but maybe you will see later. But now, Peter, to you, right? The topic shortages in supply chain, especially in automotive, is omnipresent. So what was your experience at Kinaxis in the last year, in the last month?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about disruptions in the supply chain. As we all know, we have currently the COVID situation, but I don't want to stress it a little bit more because disruptions are facing much more situation than just COVID. So in the meaning of negative, my highlight from last year was the Suez Canal when it was blocked, and we all know which effects those had. But also from the recent years, we have listed over here some disruptions we are working with in our daily work. And the volatility of these everyday disruptions is customer expectations. We have business model evolution. We have a much more complex network. I guess you missed something. We have a much more complex network, and we are facing, of course, competition, especially in the automotive industry. If I'm thinking about all these new manufacturers coming with new electric vehicles on the market, and also sustainability is a key word of these years. But going from this overall overview in disruption, the complexity is, if we go one step deeper and see how many disruptions we have at the moment, and the combination of all these makes it much more stressful to work with it. Of course, we have the semiconductor shortages at the moment in the automotive market and in other markets as well. This is going on since 1.5 years, but now it's gonna be topped by another missing material, plastic granulates. Here is listed titanium and magnesium, but also chrome and other metals are missing by now, up to whole assembly groups, components, and all these things. These situations are really complex, and the combination of all these missing parts makes the shortage management and allocation management in our solution much more complex. Mark.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, let me add some thought what we experienced at Forflow in the last month and years. Yes, Peter, you mentioned the rising uncertainties we had, especially in the last 2 years. And additionally to disruptions, yeah, we have in the automotive industry fundamental structural changes. Yeah, we have to change additionally to alternative drives. Yeah, we have also a significant change in customer behavior, and we have new players disrupting the market. And we have to make us clear that automotive supply chains are per se very fragile. And this is the legacy of the lean world, right? We made supply chain really thin and slim. We introduced lean, just in time, just in sequence, and this was completely the right thing to do, right? But we have really to admit that especially automotive supply chains are vulnerable. And I had many discussions with supply chain managers in the last month. And I asked them, yeah, in this shortage situation, what is their wish? So, and they explained me more or less 3 things you see here on this slide. So sorry, it's my. So they explained me on this slide. So first of all, they want end-to-end transparency, and they want to see it on one view where's the problem. And second, they want to be able to think in alternatives. Yeah, if they have a problem, if parts are missing, what could be alternative 1, alternative 2, alternative 3? They want to analyze it, compare these alternatives, and make and decide for the best solution. And at the end, they wanted to go through this process, what you see here, ideally in a day, to have a decision made. And these are huge risks. And Peter, so the question goes to you: what offers a Kinaxis for these companies? Have this target picture in mind.
Yeah, Mark, thank you. Could you? Yes. So this is a bunch of functionality we are offering for our automotive customers, and this is the Kinaxis automotive platform. And I just want to highlight a few things here. For the car manufacturers, passenger cars or trucks or commercial vehicles, doesn't matter, the advanced CO2 emission management is truly a highlight of our solution. Also the long range planning, the forecasting for the passenger cars and for the aftermarket as well. Also aftermarket is quite interesting. But if you want to go deeper into production, we're also offering a bunch of functionality for production, order planning, and so on. We have common functionalities for global supply chain consolidation or for multi-tier supplier collaboration, which is really interesting, especially in nowadays. To come back to our approach for today, for our content for today, we also have above of everything global sales and operation planning functionality. And the next two things we want to discuss with you is intelligence allocation and shortage management. And what does that does mean from both process and from a business point of view? Hans-Georg will explain.
Thanks, Peter. So overall, as part of the S&P process, we decide upon model mix and mid to long term range planning. But in the automotive world, this needs to be broken down more concretely into technically feasible bill of material. It needs to be validated against capacities, and last but not least, in terms of shortage management, we need to apply these as constraints. And then, of course, the desire is there, as described by Mark, by many organizations, to have then the option to try out different things in scenarios and compare then these allocation scenarios versus each other to see what the best option is actually for the company. And just to be clear here, no solution whatsoever can make the shortage go away entirely. What we enable with our platform Rapid Response is to make the best out of the shortage situation, to allocate the available supply to the models and lines and locations where it actually makes sense. And in this combination of different constraints, it's even more challenging to solve such a puzzle if you're not working with an end-to-end solution that has everything inside. Next slide, please. So, as described, as part of the overall strategy, there is usually a framework in place which classifies models by markets as key or not so key, volume contributor, margin contributor, whatsoever. And then there are, of course, the different groups in the organization. Sales channel is represented, operations and supply chain, and these need to come to a consensus based on the business rules on where to allocate the supply. And once this has been achieved, it can be automated, and of course it will be reported upon to see if the actions and measures taken are actually steering the organization and organizational performance in the right direction. Next slide, please. And I think this is adding a little more color and detail to the matrix and how granular it can become in terms of market cluster segment down to individual customers and customer orders even. In assigning dynamic priorities that is then steering the allocation of supply in shortage situation. And that's a key thing for our customers to have because the subject is so complex that manual approaches tend to fail, and throwing more people at the problem doesn't help either. So therefore you need to have a systematic approach towards establishing business rules and then making those business rules operational. And that's my part. So let's switch over to Tobias here to see Rapid Response in action.
Yeah, Tobias. So maybe let me, before you start, let me one comment. So we set up a demo for you, roughly 15 minutes. We hold it general, that this could be a use case both for automotive suppliers and also OEM. So it should show the systematic. Yeah, this was our goal, and it's and that we keep also the 15 minutes. So Tobias, please go ahead. I make you the moderator. So good. Now you should.
Okay. All right. Let me see. Okay, so I believe you are able to see my screen. Can you see it?
It's working.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, because otherwise I'm just speaking and nobody sees the screen, so that would of course be a bit boring. So as Mark has said, so what I would like to do in the next 15 minutes is to give you a little bit of a conceptual overview what our solution Rapid Response can do. And as Peter and Hans-Georg have presented a few minutes ago, it actually can do a lot. And in the end, what we try to do now is to put as much content as possible into these 15 minutes without completely confusing you. But in the end, if there are any questions, as Mark has said, please feel free to type them, and then we can also answer them afterwards. So Rapid Response, which you can see on your screen, is an end-to-end solution. And therefore, what we would like to show in the beginning is something that we like to call a network health diagram. And this network health diagram shows the entire supply chain. So in our conceptual demonstration, we see that we have 3 component factories in Amsterdam, Brussels, and Vienna. We have 4 assembly factories in Antwerp, Rotterdam, Berlin, and Zurich. We have CDCs and we have a customer market. So here in this case, it looks a bit more like a push system, but of course, we can also work perfectly with pull systems and a combination of both. That really, really depends on the customer we are speaking to. So why is this thing called a network health diagram? It is called health because we can actually see how does our entire network behave. And although this is a quite unrealistic state, but it's a great state to start a demo with, everything is green right now, so all the orders are actually arriving on time, all the production orders are produced on time, and all of our customer orders are fulfilled on time. So what we would like to do in this demo, and you can see that flow of the demo here on the right-hand side, we would actually like to give a short introduction in the beginning before we delay a few shipments. So Peter has mentioned that the Suez Canal was actually the worst thing in his mind that could have happened in the last year. So that's why it's a great example for us to work with. We will look at the impact that this delay will have, and in the end, we will evaluate the different scenarios. But before we delay the shipment, I would actually like to show that Rapid Response is a solution that covers the entire supply chain. So therefore, what I would like to do is I would like to switch at first to a generic overview on the demand side. So what you can see here on the screen is in the lower left corner, you can see a graphic visualization of the revenue by product family. So here in our case, I took a few engines. You can see the split in my company, how the revenue is split between these engines. What you can also see here in the lower right-hand corner is what is called the consensus demand plan. The consensus demand plan usually is created by looking at many different streams of demand, be it a sales forecast, be it an annual budget, be it a statistical forecast, and everything coming together in the end is a consensus demand. And what Rapid Response can do is it can help you to create this consensus. What you can also see here in the upper right corner is what we call the demand at risk. As I said before, we are currently in the situation that everything is green, everything's fine. So therefore, in the end, also for our different products in the different product groups, so with SUVs, with compact cars, sedans and cabrios, basically nothing is at risk right now. But if something would be at risk, I as a planner could immediately see with the color coding of these boxes whether something is at risk. But being a tool that does cover the entire supply chain, rapid response is also capable to model and simulate all the capacities that you currently have in your supply chain. So you can see here in the lower part of the screen that right now everything is okay, so therefore you do not see any information there. But in the upper part of the screen, you can see for our main production sites in the different countries for the individual production lines, what our average utilization is. And of course, this is for us right now a demo data set, so therefore in the end, a few things might seem to be a bit underutilized, but it should show the generic idea that you can model all demands and all supplies in one single tool. And last but not least, for the supply, which is also the topic of our webinar today, is also the material side. So rapid response also covers all materials that you actually need to produce your finished products. So that means, in summary, what we offer in our tool is an end-to-end vision of the entire supply chain that helps you to make better decisions. And to show how that works, let me go back to the demand side, because we actually skipped one single part, and that is the message board here on the left-hand side, because my colleague Dominic has actually included me in a collaboration, and he asked me whether I've heard that a vessel is stuck in the Suez Canal, and he gave me the task to check what the impact is if all the relevant shipments are either delayed by 7, by 14, or by 28 days. And this ability to simulate different scenarios, to create these scenarios, to see what the impact is on the entire supply chain, is one of the strong suits of rapid response. And in order to show you how easy it is, let's maybe go back to our network overview. Because before the webinar, I actually already created the first two examples. So we go back to our live scenario here. So as I said, I have already created two scenarios, which is what's the impact of a 7-day delay, what's the impact of a 14-day delay, and in the end, we will create in 2 minutes a scenario with the impact of a 28-day delay. So just to see the consequences, I can now change the scenario quite quickly and see what the impact is. So the 7-day delay would mean that, for instance, from our component factory in Vienna, there will be a shortage in components that we deliver to our assembly line in Berlin, which then in the end causes a shortage in the CDC, which also means that we will not be able to deliver all of our German customers in the market north and south. However, we also simulated what the impact is of a 14-day delay. So I can very simply change the scenario. And what you can see is that instead of the 96.9% we had with a 7-day delay, we now have a 95.5% on-time rate for the deliveries from Vienna to Berlin. And you can actually see that this is actually pushed through to the German markets even a bit more. So already by having these two scenarios, you can simulate a potential impact of an uncertain future. And I think that this is something in particular in the current times with all the disruptions, which is already quite a powerful tool. But to show you that this is actually very quick, let's now create a scenario with the delay for 28 days. So in order to do that, I can simply create a new scenario. let me base it on our current life scenario, and let's be in line with the naming we did before. Let's say this is a delay of 28 days. And the moment I click create, that new scenario is already created. And that is because of Rapid Response's patented database technology, which allows you to very quickly create new scenarios, which are your own private sandboxes, and then play around with them. So we have created a new scenario. You can see that everything is green again, because we copied it from our current life scenario. So now let's do the following. Let's go to our demo overview, and now let's delay the shipments that we have. So Rapid Response is also capable to track all the current material shipments that are currently en route to your production facilities. And what you can see is in our new scenario, we can now very simply delay these shipments by 28 days, because that is exactly what I wanted to analyze. So I can simply click on delay. I can run this. We can see that 4 entries will be modified. And the moment I press confirm, we can see now that all the vessels which are currently on their way to Europe will actually be delayed by 28 days. Of course, in reality, this information comes in through risk signal providers, but for our demo purposes, I just triggered it manually. So now the only thing I need to do is I need to refresh this dashboard, and we will immediately see what the impact would be of the 28-day delay. Because in the end, what happened in the background is that Rapid Response created a new plan based on the new situation. So the supply side changed, and what we can see with a delay of 28%, now that only 93% of all the shipments from Vienna to Berlin will be on time, and that also this has a quite heavy impact on our markets in Germany. And as we did before, we can now drill into detail. So we can have a look what that means for the demand side. So for the demand side, we can see that our SUVs are luckily not impacted, but that the most impact we can see is on the compact cars and the cabriolets. And I can also hover with my mouse over it to see where the potential issue is. I could even drill down much, much further by saying that currently the consensus demand shows that there is a specific amount at risk. So I could even drill down to all the orders that are currently in the solution. It can be forecasted orders. It can be actual orders. So basically all the information that is in a Rapid Response. And what we can see for, in this case, the forecasted orders, if I now go to the late orders, I can see all of the orders which are actually late. And we can see a quite interesting behavior. Because if we, for instance, drill into that compact car and we open the so-called component tree, which opens now in the bottom, so let me make that a bit bigger. So we can see all the components that are needed in order to produce this amount, the 136 units of that car. And we can see that this is produced in Berlin. It has components coming from Vienna and from Brussels. And we can see that for this specific order, which is due on the 19th of July, we can see that a delayed delivery for the B1110 component in Vienna actually causes the problem. We could also visualize that a bit more in detail, for instance, with a component tree. So also here, you can see we will be delayed at the customer, basically because one component will be delivered late. However, if we go to the bottom of that list, the list is sorted on the actual due date. So let me press Control and End. Let's go to the last line. So this is now an order which is late on the 15th of November. I can also have a look at this specific order here for the cabriolet. And what I see again is all the different components that are used in order to produce our product. But now we can see that there is actually a delay on the capacity. So the interesting effect that our delay in the shipments has is, in the beginning, we do not have the components available to produce our products. But at one moment in time, they will arrive, and then we have too many components for the capacity that we have. So we actually run into a capacity issue. And all of these consequences can be seen in a tool like Rapid Response, because it models your supply chain end to end. So what we can also then do, so similar to what we did before, we could also have a look at the capacity side of things. Here we can see for our delay of 28 days an impact analysis, how basically our constraints are overloaded, what the impact is from a revenue perspective. We could even drill into individual constraints and capacities, simulate the impact of extending that capacity, or maybe creating additional shifts, or whatever else. And we could also have a look at the material side of things. So we also have an immediate overview on the components which are actually critical. So right now this might look a bit messy down here in the component tree map, but for instance, if I switch to the side, we can see that only in our plant in Vienna there is an issue, and I can now again drill in, and then I look at only the Viennese components which actually are an issue, such that I, as a planner, would now be able to work on it, for instance, by attempting to secure an alternate source, to use a substitute part, or whatever else. So Rapid Response's capability to model the end-to-end supply chain, to simulate different scenarios, to cope with an uncertain future, is, as we said before, from our perspective, one of our main strengths, that everything can be done in a very quick way in one single solution. And last but not least, you can then also basically go ahead after the impact analysis we have done, so to look at specific company metrics in order to assess the different scenarios that you have created. So for instance, here in our example, I created a scorecard with 4 different metrics. One was the average delay, one is the number of late components, then we have the demand at risk in units and the demand at risk in euros. And the 7-day and 14-day scenario I already created. So now I can simply add the 28-day scenario to it. And then basically what you can see is the average delay makes a lot of sense. The number of late components stays exactly the same, because we actually delayed all the vessels by a specific duration. The demand at risk goes up from 6,700 to 10,500 to 24,000. And we can also see the revenue at risk, which actually even goes to €500 million in case that vessel would be stuck by 28 days. So as a last step, I could now share this information with my colleague Dominic. I can basically give him access to all these scenarios. I can write a short description here that I've done the analysis, and you have seen that this analysis can actually be done quite quickly in order for you to get a good idea on how your supply chain will react to unforeseen changes. And with this, I would like to end my demonstration. I hope that you got a very brief overview on what a tool like Rapid Response can do for you. And I would hand back to Mark.
Thanks, Tobias. And I think we have some minutes left in our webinar. Let's use it, that you can all ask us questions. Yes, and please use your control panel on the right-hand side. You can type in whatever you want to know from us. So Yeah. First question to you, Peter. And the question is, how widespread is rapid response in the automotive area? Maybe you can explain a little bit.
Yes, of course, Mark. So we have roughly 30 of the most known brands of the world in our customer base. There is a lot of business going on at the moment, so we are discussing with some other of the important car manufacturers at the moment, as well as with suppliers, of course. The interesting thing is that we have in our automotive community a user group, a kind of a user group together with our product management, where we discuss the needs for the next periods, for the next year. And so all of our customers can have a specific influence on the needs of functionality in our solution. So also with the customer together, we develop the CO2 emission calculation, how to handle it, how to calculate it. It's done together with our customers. And then we deliver those functionalities to all of our customers. And it's really interesting to take part of those meetings with product management and with our automotive customers, and to discuss the requirements, especially in these volatile market with all the new cars, with new strategies, with new regularities from the European Union. If we take a look on Europe. And it's really quite interesting, and around about 30 brands are already our customers. Asian companies, US companies, of course, as well as here in Europe, a lot of companies.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So that's another one, and the question is maybe how long does it take to implement rapid response? So Hans-Georg, maybe this is something for you. You can explain a little, because maybe there is not one answer. Maybe there are a little bit explanation necessary. So yeah. Please, Hans-Georg.
Yeah, of course, that depends on scope. We've developed a specific implementation methodology for earning quick results. So if it's, for example, one business unit, one brand in one continent, or any other slice and dice definition of meaningful scope, this can be as quick as 12 to 16 weeks deployment to see rapid response working and seeing first results. Typically, if we don't apply rapid start methodology and go for an end-to-end deployment, then this is clearly something that is more in the range of 6 to 12 months, realistically.
Okay. Yeah? Okay, thanks, Hans-Georg. And then we have last one another in. So in case of shortage situation we're discussing right now, yeah. So maybe there is some material will come, they will have delays, 7 days or whatever. If you take our example, Tobias, and if you think about in a real situation in a company, yeah, and we have seen a critical criteria is at being fast, because you have to make decisions, find solutions, and act, yeah, and not waiting for days, yeah. And how now from your experience in projects in after implementations, how fast a company can act using rapid response for these kind of solutions? What is realistic?
Yeah. So in the end, I think everything depends a little bit, of course, on the maturity of the company. So to say that if you are a company that is very mature, which means that people speak to each other, people work together collaboratively, then the speed of making a good decision fast is much faster than if you actually start with a very, very siloed approach. So what we have seen is that with our solution, actually the different silos got loosened up step by step. And the longer companies use rapid response, the faster these decisions can be made. Because I hope you have seen in the demonstration, from a technological point of view, rapid response can make solutions extremely fast. It will not, as Hans-Georg also said before, magically generate components out of thin air, right? So this is impossible, but it actually gives you options on how to decide, and then you can work together with your colleagues, with your suppliers, maybe even with your customers to find the best possible solutions.
Okay, that's interesting. So at the end, we can say not technology is the bottleneck. To be fast, it's the organization itself. So this is very interesting, I think. And yeah, oh, here's one question coming in. Yeah, I have one. It's so long. I have to see. Let me see. End-to-end transparency and rapid response with demand-driven forecast accuracy. I have a technical problem. I can't not read the whole question because it's so long.
But maybe we can come back to that via email.
We will come back. You know, it's okay. Yeah, I could click through. Yeah, the question is regarding management. Yeah, convincing management. Also often forecasting are suffering from lack of attention from higher management. Yeah, from our experience, what are the best strategies to convince managers of the importance of forecasting? Yes, also maybe I can take this. I did this in several projects, so maybe this is for me. It is, if it is clear the whole organization, to show the impact of a good forecast and of a bad forecast, right? If you're in a real make to order, so it's a little bit easier, you know, because at the moment it's easier for the automakers. They have orders intake, so they have just to make the long range forecasting. If you're in other businesses, for example, spare parts, yeah, let's take spare parts. Forecasting is really crucial, right? Because it's really volatile. You don't know what happens, and you have many influence factors, yeah. And also we on 4Flow, we really support our customers finding the right methodology. And what we do normally, compare different methods, solutions. If you do it manual, if you do, still a lot of companies, they trust the experience of their people on just to guess what will come in. To make it clear, I think use of rapid response, you can also play the scenarios, yeah, to see what impact a good forecast has and impact a bad forecast has, and you will see, especially in spare parts, the effect on service level and inventory will be significant, yeah. And yes, my experience is a long. It's not just. You need a lot of meetings and workshops to convince all the people, but also to take top management, showing them the results, having them in this discussion, and show them how much easier it is for the organization. And also forecasting is a really, if you take spare parts, for example, is a really good action to be proactive, yeah, and don't wait until material is missing. So yeah, and the good thing on the technology side, there are a lot of sophisticated tools out in the market, like machine learning tools, which really can help with that. So I think it was a little bit long, my answer, but I hope it helped. So if I look at the time, we have come to an end. And I say thank you to everybody. I hope you enjoyed it and hope to see you again in this round. Okay, then we say goodbye and yeah, see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Have a nice rest of the day.